of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. We arrive at the end of the Christmas journey this morning. Messages of hope sung and courage whispered have given way to the hush and cries of newborn life. And yet, Herod still rules. Christ is born, and yet it can feel as though the world has not changed. The danger faced by Mary and Joseph is not over. Grief has not disappeared. The geopolitical climate, in fact, feels even more precarious, and I wrote these words 2 weeks ago. It's no accident that Herod looms large in Matthew's telling of Jesus' birth. As the puppet ruler of the Roman Empire, he was known for his violence and paranoia. He represents the very worst of what fear and power can create. He lies, he manipulates, he is willing to sacrifice countless innocents to maintain his control. As Jesus' family are warned in a dream to flee to Egypt, Herod's massacre, which comes right after the verses read this morning, echoes the Pharaoh's infanticide in Exodus 1. It is into this story that the Magi appear. They aren't dissuaded or fooled by being called before a king. They aren't distracted by the shiny power of empire. They are led by something else. A star. Yes. And what does it mean to follow a star today? As Reverend Dr. Boyong Lee writes, it is into this volatile landscape that the Magi enter. They're, quote, foreign, Gentile astrologers. Matthew calls them megoi apo atonolon. Don't quote me on that pronunciation. Magi from the East. They are not given a religion or gender, even though the term comes from a tradition where men and women could hold the title. We have no evidence that there were three, but in the time when empire and Christianity have been intertwined, our tradition has, of course, made them men, made them kings, and narrowed their number. John Calvin, kind of a big deal, theologian who systemized Protestant theology, felt strongly about anyone who labeled them three kings. And I love some theologian insults. So here you go. Calvin wrote, "Beyond all doubt, anyone who thinks these are three kings, they have been stupefied by a righteous judgment of God, that all might laugh at their gross ignorance." That's what Calvin thinks about it being three kings. Strong opinion. Others have written about the Magi as magicians or healers. In modern day, there are those who write about who else may have come. Looking beyond that symbolism that has become fact, three men bearing gifts, Jan Richardson has written a poem that captures some of these wonderings, declaring that wise women also came. I am not making any of the jokes that I've been seeing on the Facebook groups this week about which gender asks for directions and may have arrived on time. I am not making those jokes. She wrote, "Seeking no directions, no permission from any king, they came in the darkness before the stars rising, bearing the gifts of water for labor's washing, fire for warm illumination, a blanket for swaddling." Richardson writes, "They came in quiet, spreading no rumors, sparking no fear. Wise women also came." Boyong Lee writes, draws on biblical exegesis and feminist theology and rich birthing traditions in various Asian cultures to write about the Magi as women. This is what she writes. If we imagine the Magi as women, the story shifts. Instead of royal men, we see wise women crossing boundaries of religion, ethnicity, and culture to stand in solidarity with a marginalized mother and child. Their journey becomes not only homage, but radical accompaniment, a feminine embodiment of God's epiphany. Their gifts symbolize not economic exchange, but political recognition. They discern what imperial agents cannot, that this child is worthy of reverence. It's not so much the gender of the Magi that I'm invested in. Gender is a construct, after all. But what it does to our theological imaginations when we're able to see stories anew. When we're able to break the Magi free from the confines, including gender, that limit our understanding of what the Magi represent and what that means for our lives. The Magi are outsiders. From outside the culture, outside the nation, outside the story as it's been told so far. And they are the ones who notice that something new has broken into the world. Perhaps it is the part of ourselves that does not fit into this world that helps us see the divine among us. The Magi recognize fear and respond to danger, but they are not led by it. Travel was dangerous, crossing borders was risky, entering Jerusalem meant entering a space of fear and surveillance and violence, and yet they go. Fear is present in this story, but it is not the force that directs them. Perhaps we too can recognize fear, but not allow it to be what moves us. And the Magi are led by a star, by a sign that cannot be controlled or weaponized or possessed by Herod or anyone else. Whatever else that star may have been theologically, it represents attention. The willingness to look up, to watch, to trust in God's guidance. While Herod is surrounded by power, advisors, soldiers, and certainty, he is terrified. The Magi have none of that. And yet they find freedom through solidarity and call. Herod responds to fear by tightening his grip. The Magi respond to uncertainty by widening their journey. One tries to control the future, the others risk being changed by it. And notice this, when the Magi finally arrive, they do not find what fear tells them to look for. No army, no throne, no evidence of worldly success. They find a child, vulnerable, dependent, unimpressive by imperial standards. And still they kneel. Not because the child is powerful, but because they recognize that God's power is showing up differently than they expected. This is Epiphany. Not just the revelation of Christ in our midst, but the revelation that fear is a poor guide for faithful living. The Magi show us that fear does not disappear before we move. It simply loses its authority over our steps. And after they encounter the child, they listen again to a dream, to wisdom that says, do not return the same way. Having seen the truth, they refuse to cooperate with violence. They choose another road home. Fear does not stop them. It does not stop them from seeking. It does not stop them from kneeling. And it doesn't stop them from changing directions. That too is part of the gospel. And we too are invited to look for God's guidance, even when, especially when overwhelm takes over, when grief crashes in, when the United States brazenly invades yet another nation, when loss shakes us and fear tightens its grip. We are invited to look for God's guidance, to lead our steps today and tomorrow, and to let those steps transform us again and again and again. In a few minutes, as part of communion, you'll be invited to receive a star word, this basket here, or your electronic spinner online. Not as a fortune, not as a resolution, not as a test you must pass, but as a companion for the journey. A word that may shimmer with meaning at first, or one that may annoy you or puzzle you, even frustrate you. We've done this the last few years, and I asked folks what, if anything, it has meant to them. Annie shared a response with me on the star word that she drew for 2025, and she said I could share it. Her word was wholeness. And on Epiphany of last year, she thought she knew exactly what that word meant. And then everything changed. This is what Annie wrote. I found that lump on January 17th, and everything afterward felt so far from wholeness. And yet, I had the star word on my wall all year round. Wholeness. Some moments it felt mocking, but mostly I found pieces of myself adjusting, changing, growing to understand and know wholeness would have different meanings for me in 2025 and thereafter. The word served as an anchor through all the topsy-turvy of the year, and I would gravitate to meditating on why that star word came to me this year. I don't really love resolutions or huge decisions to change everything at the start of the year, but these star words feel like a way God speaks. Thank you, Annie, for offering that. Star words don't need to be your answer, but my prayer for each of you and for myself is that we will all find ways to remind us to look for God's guidance and hope and imagination-freeing presence in this coming year. This is Epiphany faith, not certainty but attention, not control but courage, not fearlessness but the next faithful step. The star is still shining, and love leads us forward. Let us go together. Amen. Amen. Amen.